What's up, everyone? It's Bones here. If you like buying cards and wouldn't mind helping a content creator out, feel free to use my TCG player affiliate link down below. It doesn't cost you anything to do so, except maybe an ounce of kindness. If you're a fan of the Chimera deck because it's easy to learn and quite repetitive in what it wants to do, then this might be a deck for you. This deck focuses on just one pretty simple combo that I'm going to go over a few different ways that we can get there, as we're going to mill one of our first new cards here, Wheeze, and I don't want to read over these cards over and over since I will be doing quite a few Lightsworn videos in the upcoming week, but basically you can place one other Lightsworn card from your hand on top of the deck, special summon it, then you can send the top two cards from your deck to the graveyard. This is really good if you do have something like Minerva in your hand as well as Felice or Wolf, because then you can just put them on top of the deck and then mill them and get their extra effects. But the other effect reads, you can target one Lightsworn monster in your graveyard except Wheeze, special summon it. Now you do have to send it from the deck to the graveyard in order to get that effect, but still you're able to do that quite easily in Lightsworn, which makes it a very solid piece of support that the deck got. It does also change the trajectory of how we can play this deck, and this is one of the reasons why it's so redundant, whereas before Lightsworns were a mill deck that could kind of freestyle into whatever it did. Not anymore as far as this build goes, so we're going to use the effect of Dragon, special summon it. Dragon is a pretty solid card as well, as when you have a Lightsworn in the graveyard, you can activate its effect in hand in order to special summon it, and then if it's special summoned, you can send a Lightsworn card from your deck to the graveyard. Then its final effect, really we won't be using at all in this deck. If it's sent to the graveyard, then you can add a monster with 3000 attack, 2600 defense from your deck to your hand, and you can only use each effect of Dragonling once per turn. Basically a way to get into your Punishment or Judgment Dragon, but again, we don't want to play cards like that in the Runick version, so we're going to then use the effect here in order to send our Felice. Then we can bring out the Felice as we'll then be able to go into our new Minerva, and Minerva takes one tuner plus one non-tuner monsters. It's a generic level 8, which is really good. Kind of like Chaos Ruler 2.0 almost, except a little bit worse because you need Lightsworn, and Lightsworn monsters you control cannot be banished by card effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Minerva once per turn. If this card is synchro summoned, you can send Lightsworn monsters with different types from your deck to the graveyard up to the number of Lightsworn monsters used as this card's material, so that's important to note. If you only use one Lightsworn monster, you'll only get one send, and in the Runick version, that's especially important because you may be going into this with the Jerry or something like that. You can banish up to 4 Lightsworn monsters from the graveyard, send that many cards from the top of the deck to the graveyard, so that's kind of why I call it like a mini little Chaos Ruler, just because it's able to send cards to the graveyard. It's generic. You do have to play Lightsworns in order to really make it pop off. The Lightsworns are a splashable archetype anyways, as we're going to send our Wheeze along with Felice, and this gets us access into 2 more tuners as we can revive Felice off its own effect and then revive the Felice that we used earlier, as we'll now be able to get extra mills off the Minerva if you would like to. You'll see that I do hit a Minerva there. We're going to hit another Minerva, and I don't have this deck randomized, so that's kind of why it went like that, but we're now going to go into our Auxilla, and this is a new Centurion card. If you didn't see my previous Lightsworn video, that's kind of what this deck really focuses around, being able to bring out the Hot Red King Calamities, except that this version has the Runick cards behind it, and you have a few different ways to get into there that are pretty different to what you're doing in the pure build. But this one reads that it takes one tuner plus one non-tuner monsters. Face-up cards in your spell and trap zone cannot be destroyed by card effect, and this is pretty cool because of how it synergizes with the Primera, and Primera being able to protect your Centurion monsters, but you can only use each of the following effects of Auxilla once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can add one Centurion card from your deck to your hand. Then during the end phase, you can place one of your non-synchro Centurion monsters that is banished or in your graveyard in your spell and trap zone as a continuous trap. So now we're going to continue here by being able to search our Primera, or you can search the Trudeo, whichever you want to, as we're then going to use the effect of the Primera. We're going to add ourselves our next new card. This is the Gargoyle, and it's a level 8 that you can bring out, which is really convenient because it makes it easier to get a level 12 on board, especially with Felice being a level 4 tuner that you can get once you mill it. That just makes the value of this card exponentially better, and you can send one face-up card or one face-up Centurion card you control to the graveyard, special summon this card from your hand. Also, you cannot special summon Gargoyle for the rest of this turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can add this card to your hand. Then during the main phase, if this card is a continuous trap, you can special summon this card. Then you can reduce its level by 4. You can only use each effect of Centurion Gargoyle once per turn. Now, we're going to continue here by using the effect of the Gargoyle, which will send away the Primera or the Trudeo, whatever you end up doing there, but we're then going to go into our Crimson Dragon, use the effect of Gargoyle to get it back to hand. Now we can go to the end phase, use the effect of Oxilla, Godzilla, whatever you want to call it, as we'll then be able to use the effect of Crimson Dragon at any point during your opponent's turn, and then you can bring out your Hot Red King Calamities in order to lock out your opponent from hopefully playing, as then you also have the Gargoyle as follow-up with the Primera that you'll also be able to special summon on your next turn, assuming it survives, of course, and things like that. Now, for this next few combos, I do want to show what happens when you have Minerva along with Slumber, the two new Lightsworn monsters that we got. So there will be different variations of what you can do with slightly different cards here, and for the first two that I'm going to show, I'm going to be showing versions with the Wheeze along with the Minerva. You can either activate the Slumber during the draw phase, which I'll do on the next one, or in this case, we're going to start with the Charge, and the Charge will add us the Wheeze. We can then use the Wheeze, which will then put the Minerva in hand. We'll be able to send two here, as we're then going to get an extra mill off the Minerva, use the effect of Slumber, as we can then use the Gary in order to get ourselves the Fountain back, which is really cool, as if you're milling here, potentially mill a Fountain, get it back with Gary and little things like that. But now we're going to go into our Minerva, use the effect of Minerva, which will then be able to send the Felice. We'll be able to use the effect of Felice, use the effect of Minerva. If you would like to send more cards to the graveyard, then we can use the Godzilla, Oxilla, as we'll get ourselves the Trudea. Now, in this case, you actually do want to get the Trudea because we do need an extra card in order to make sure that we have something else for the Centurion Gargoyle to synchro away with. So that's why we have the Trudea along with the Primera and the Gargoyle package. So just 3 cards. But we're now going to use the effect of Primera, get ourselves the Gargoyle. We can then use the effect of Gargoyle, send away the Trudea. Now we'll be able to synchro away into Crimson Dragon, use the effect of Gargoyle, get it back to hand. And now from here, we can go on to our opponent's turn, and at any point, you can use the Crimson Dragon. And I also would like to point out that you must be wondering why I have Minerva and not Wolf here. And you can play Wolf if you would like to, but I feel for the consistency of the deck, Minerva is a little bit better because you can pitch it off the Hugin and get yourself a send to the graveyard that way, which can end up being a Runick monster or a Runick spell card, or it can be a Lightsworn monster. Something that I thought about when making this deck, that did I want to play Wolf, did I not, and if I played Wolf, what was the value going to be compared to Minerva? Also, another thing that made me think about it was everything that I kind of needed to do my combos with required a tuner more than a non-tuner, and Jerry just felt something that was more consistent in my opinion as a non-tuner, because you could just activate it off the quick play Runick spells, and that's why I have the Minerva here over Wolf. But with that, I'll take you on to the next combo. Now, this is the second iteration of the combo, and again, you're going to see a lot of the same stuff, as I said, similar to the Chimera deck. This is very, very redundant, as we're going to pitch the Minerva here, and this is kind of what I was talking about before, where the Minerva ends up getting us a send here. Now, if we had an extra Runick card in hand, the Fountain has 2 different targets that we can shuffle back into the deck, of course, depending on what the rest of your hand is, what the rest of your charge mills are, because as you saw, we just hit a Runick spell along with another Fountain, so we're going to be able to add ourselves the Dragonling since we pitched the Minerva. Now we can use the Dragonling in order to send ourselves a Felice, and then from here, Felice is going to give us access into the Synchro Minerva. Now we can use the effect in order to send ourselves the Wheeze and the Felice, and again, just a lot of what you've seen before, where we're going to be able to go into the Godzilla, and then the Godzilla can get ourselves the copy of the Primera or the Trudea, whichever way you want to go about it. We'll summon the Primera, as we'll then be able to get ourselves a copy of Gargoyle. Then we can use the effect of Gargoyle. We'll get our access into another level 12 for the Crimson Dragon, because now we have the Fountain along with any potential Runick quick plays in hand. We have the Hugin, level 12 Synchros on board, which is just really solid. The final combo, I want to show off Dragonling along with the Runick quick play and Minerva. Really short video and a really redundant one, as mentioned before, just because you're really doing the same things over and over again, and if you don't see your Lightsworn and Runick cards, it's likely that you're just playing either just Runick or you're getting into your Lightsworn combos and doing pretty much just this. So we're going to continue here by using the effect of Dragon. We'll be able to send away the Felice, use the effect of the Felice in order to bring itself back, go into the Minerva, use the effect of Minerva in order to send our way our 2 monsters. The Felice and the Wheeze will then be able to trigger their effects, as we'll be able to revive the 2 Felice. We'll then go into our Oxilla, Godzilla, as we'll then be able to get our Primera, then normal summon the Primera, get ourselves the Gargoyle. From here, we'll then be able to activate the Gargoyle in hand, send away the Primera, give us access into the Crimson Dragon. So with all of the combos out of the way, almost stale, and I'm sorry to call it that, but that's kind of what it is. We have the 3 Dragonling and the 3 Wheeze. We then have the 2 Felice and the 2 Minervas as the cards that that we're playing, this is kind of just like an upstart for milling, which was what really made me decide to use it over the wolf. Of course, if you want to play the wolf as the extra body, you can do just that, but I didn't think that it was worth it because there just may be hands where you have a bunch of Runick stuff and then maybe the wolf, and you don't draw into anything but Runick cards, so at least you can get yourself the mill with the Minerva and lower the chance that you have really dead cards in hand, since you're already playing things that can potentially be dead if you don't have the right cards to pair them with, like the rest of the Lightsworn cards and the Centurion cards. Also, of course, have your hand traps. And I would like to glance over the extra deck. As you see, there is a ton of options here regarding to level 10s. There's also level 6s that you can play. There's things that you can do when you have the Wheeze that you can normal summon Synchro it away with Hugin. There's also ways to get into the Chaos Angel with the light and dark materials, as the Gargoyle is a level 8, and then you have Hugin, which is a light. So right there, you get the Chaos Angel with both effects, and then of course you have the Minerva that can get you there as well. Though if you do Synchro it away with the Hugin, it is 2 lights. Then the Centurion and the level 12 stuff admittedly does take a lot of space in the deck. I think that it is worth it just because the going first potential skyrockets with Centurion package. Then you'll see that I have a really small Runick engine as well, which I kind of would like to expand on. It was really hard to find extra deck space, so you can really decide what you want to do there, as I still chose to play the SP. I felt it was wrong leaving it outside the deck. Then of course there's things like Dweller that you even replace with the number 41 if you want to do that. I also would like to go over the Master Flare Hyperion. I thought this was really funny because you actually have a few fairy monsters that you can get into the graveyard between the Hugin, the Minerva. You then also have one of your main deck monsters, I believe here, is a fairy as well, or I guess no, I'm wrong, but still the point is that you have a few ways to get fairies into the graveyard. It would be a solid substitution if you can find extra fairies to play in here if you would like to. Then of course, if you don't want to play the Coral Dragon, there's the Golden Cloud Beast that you can play. Level Manipulate with that, you also have the bounce effect. It really does depend on whether you would like the draw or the bounce, really, as the level manipulation I don't think matters too much, since this specific extra deck is more catered to 12s, 10s, and 8s. While the Coral Dragon is really just going into the Chengying, but also would like to point out that because level 4 dragon here is a dragon, you can technically go into the Dispatter pretty easily as well, but I just don't think that we're banishing enough to make it matter. Of course, you do have the Minerva Mill effect, which can banish cards, but it just feels that there's not enough bodies to make that revival from the Bestial Dispatter too relevant. With all of that out of the way, I'm just going to get onto the card by card, and we have the 3 dragons, the 3 Weaves, the 3 Charge, the 3 Slumber, 3 Veiler, the 2 Fountains, the 3 Ash, the 1 Primera, Trudea, we then have Gargoyle, Storm, we then have the 2 copies of Felice, 2 copies of Minerva, we then have the 3 copies of we have the 3 copies of Curse, the 3 copies of Flames, and the 3 copies of Destruction. Onto the extra deck, we have the SP Little Knight, Dweller, we then have the 1 copy of Hot Red, Crimson Dragon, we then have the 2 Centurion Synchros, the Legacia, and the Oxella, the 1 Chengying, we then have the 1 Chaos Angel, Minerva, we then have the 1 copy of Omega, which technically could be a second Minerva if you would like to play the second one. We then have the 1 Coral Dragon, the 2 Jerry, along with the 2 Hugin to round out the deck profile. So for everyone who's made it this far, I'd like to thank you for watching, and for the 700 plus subscribers. I truly appreciate your support, and now that we've monetized the channel, giving us access to supers and memberships means that more awesome stuff is on the horizon. To get the channel membership, just click on the description below, and there will be a link that takes you there. You'll also notice a free Discord link that I've made for us too. If you want to support me as a content creator, even if you can't donate supers or get a membership for the channel, clicking on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons help a lot too. For those wondering, I do plan on making updates to the channel as the support on the channel grows. Anyways, I hope to see you on the next one. It's Bones signing